And we speak with Bob every Wednesday here and going over the games that are coming up this weekend. Sometimes we talk about the games from this past weekend, but the games, of course, that's coming up here on 1010 KSIR on Friday of interest of the people here in this community and obviously in this region of the country is CU and Nebraska. Even though the Big 12 North, is we've well documented on this show, has been down this year, it's still a rivalry game and a game that usually takes place the Friday after Thanksgiving. Bob, what are you looking for in that CU-Nebraska game on Friday, other than maybe a little futility?
Well, I think it's going to be an all right game. I just think that there's a lot riding on this game for Nebraska and Colorado. So while the team's records aren't the best and this isn't, a number one versus number two scenario, for the fans of both programs, there's a lot riding on this game. Of course, Nebraska, so much pressure on their seniors to continue a 35-year bowl streak, and of course 42 years of 500 or better. And then you look at Colorado, and if they win and Iowa State loses, they go to the Big 12 championship game. So believe it or not, the Buffaloes are still very much in the hunt for a BCS bowl bid.
Bob, do you anticipate a low-scoring game in this one, or a rather high-scoring game?
I think it'll be moderate. I don't think that either team's going to put 40 on the board, but I think you could see both teams in the 20s. I think you look at Nebraska's pass defense, it's really interesting. The Sporting News ranked their defensive secondary number one in the country at the beginning of the year. And right now they are, in passing defense, the worst team in the Big 12. So it's been a rough year for the Nebraska secondary. So can Joel Klatt, capitalize on that? I think Nebraska is going to be able to run the football, but the question is whether Joe Daly, their quarterback, who's really struggled in his first year under the West Coast offense, is going to be able to move the ball through the air and keep the Colorado Buffaloes on their heels a little bit and not allow them to get 8, maybe even 9 guys in the box.
You think Nebraska's going to win?
I don't, actually. I think Colorado's going to win this one. I think Colorado is just going to be geared up because they know they're playing for a lot. And, maybe it's just the thought that this Nebraska team has been so hit and miss all year. If this game was in Boulder, I'll tell you this, it's not even a question. I think because it's in Lincoln, it could go either way. I think the thing you got to really realize, too, is there are a lot of Husker fans that are just gripping this week because they are staring at the edge of the abyss. You're talking about all the greatness of this program coming to a close here if they lose this game, and I think a lot of Nebraska fans are having to struggle coping with that.
Okay, the other game right here on KSIR on Friday, Texas and Texas A&M, also out of the Big 12. This could be a pretty good game, Bob. Certainly some better teams as compared to the Colorado-Nebraska game.
Yeah, the Big 12 South just better from top to bottom, I think, than the Big 12 North at every slot. This is going to be a good game. I think Texas is going to win it. I just think they're better than Texas A&M, but because this is a rivalry game, it's going to be tight. Reggie McNeil's going to be a factor. If he's healthy, if he's playing well, maybe they pull the upset. Texas is playing for a lot. They're another team playing for a lot. They're playing for a BCS bid, and they win, they'll get in there. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's been some reports that if Texas loses, Boise State might sneak into the top 6. And if that happens, and Utah stays in the top 6, Cal would not go to the Rose Bowl. So this game, Cal fans should be rooting hard for Texas right now.
Yeah, that's sickening what could happen. We're going to talk more about the BCS coming up in a little bit. I figured you were going to throw that in there, Bob, and yes, that we are fully aware of what could happen if Boise State gets in the top 6. And that's very possible to happen because I think Texas A&M, even though they're a big underdog going into this game, I think they have a great chance of beating Texas. I mean, you look at the Aggies this year where they've been exposed, like that Oklahoma game, their pass defense was proven to be pretty shoddy, but you look at Texas and Vincent Young, I mean, that's not a guy that's really going to set the world on fire with his passing ability, and so I don't really see Texas attacking Texas A&M's weakness all that well, and I think Texas A&M's got a great shot, even though they're on the road of winning this game. Well,
Vincent Young has made some big plays this year for the Longhorns. You look at that Kansas game from a few weeks back. He got that 18-yard run on 4th down. I think he gained like 23 yards on a 4th and 18, and then he threw the touchdown pass to their tight end with about 10, 20 seconds left in the game. So he's made plays. It's just a question of whether he can make them consistently enough. Well, like I said, I like Texas, but I do think it's going to be a good game.
And against good teams. I mean, he really hasn't, and when he's been tested against good teams in terms of throwing the ball, he hasn't been there. I mean, Oklahoma completely shut Texas down because they dared Young to throw, and he couldn't throw the ball at all against them.
No, he couldn't. And Oklahoma did a great job scheming for that game, and that is a great point. I think, obviously Kansas is not a great team by any means, but they've played hard. They've lost a lot of nail-biters. So, yeah, they're not the caliber of some other programs that maybe he's had some struggles against. I think it'll be interesting to see how the coaches do in this one. Someone might coach up their kids and lead them to a victory, and if that happens, my bet's on Francione.
Okay, Bob, let's move on. I'm still recovering here from Pat saying that Texas A&M has a shot here, only because I just can't envision them beating Texas when they lost at Baylor earlier this year, but you never know. I mean, they're going to be up a lot more for this game than they would be for the Baylor game.
Rivalry game.
They could have beat Oklahoma, John, don't forget. Oklahoma was pushed to the limit by Texas A&M.
No, that's very true. Very true. Anyway, but that game was at College Station, I believe. Wasn't that game?
It was, yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, well, anyway, let's move on with Steve Spurrier here, the new head coach at the University of South Carolina. Can he get the Gamecocks within the next 3 to 5 years back to the same type of prominence that they had the University of Florida at in the mid-'90s?
Whoa. Slow it down. No way. What he's going to do, though, is he's going to win a lot of football games there, and those fans are going to love him for it because they've never had a consistent winner, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to build a consistent winner. He's going to get some recruits, and they're going to compete for an SEC division title, year in and year out. But you got to understand the days of him being where he was at Florida, those are gone. And he pretty much said, I'm not interested in that when he passed up Florida. I mean, keep in mind, this is the guy that said, I don't want to take the Florida job to go to South Carolina. He's looking for a nice paycheck where he can do a good job and, make fans happy, and the pressure isn't there, the expectations like he felt in the NFL and at the end of his Florida career. But, playing for the national title, I don't know that he'll ever do that at South Carolina, and I'm a huge Spurrier fan. I think this guy is a great coach. I think kids love him. I think kids want to play for him. I think he's a phenomenal recruiter. I think South Carolina is going to get a big boost in the recruiting wars, but national championships, let's slow down.
Well, Bob, why would he take that job then if he didn't have the same aspirations? You talk about picking up a nice paycheck when you know that he's going to try to recruit the same way he did at Florida. I don't know if he'll have the same success, but he certainly has. He still has that name out there. He is Steve Spurrier.
He is, and like I said, I love him. He's great. The old ball coach, man. He put the visor on, and he'll go out there and he'll hang half 100 on you. But this is South Carolina, and you got to realize that this is not Florida. It does not have the natural recruiting pool that Florida does, and it's just going to take him time. And I'm not saying he'll never play for a national championship, but if you think it's going to happen in 3 years, you must know something I don't know, because I just can't see that happening. I mean, Lou Holtz is a great coach, a great recruiter, and he went 0-11 at South Carolina. That's how tough of a job that is. Lou Holtz doesn't go 0-11. He wins football games, and he had a tough time winning football games at South Carolina. Steve Spurrier will have a tough time, too, and he'll do a good job. He'll get him 9 wins. He'll get him to some bowl games. He'll get to play a lot of golf, maybe even in Augusta National.
Okay, let's go. Let's look at Lou Holtz's former team, of course, or former school, which Notre Dame, who plays USC coming up this weekend. Obviously, USC still 2 games to play before they can have hopes of playing in the national championship game. Big favorites against the Irish coming up this weekend. Do you expect Notre Dame to blow, or USC to blow Notre Dame away? And how it's really tough to judge this Notre Dame team because, I mean, you have them losing to BYU early in the year. They have some losses on their schedule which are just kind of unexplainable, but at the same time, they have wins that are unexplainable, like wins over Michigan and Tennessee. Where do you see this Notre Dame-USC game going?
Well, I hope it's not a blowout because I'm going to the game. I hope it's competitive, but, gosh, I don't see it. I just think that Coach Carroll will have his kids ready to play, and I think guys like Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush are licking their chops thinking about 2 years ago when Carson Palmer pretty much won the Heisman based on his play in the Coliseum against Notre Dame. I was thinking about it, if this happens, Notre Dame, it's going to be like posterizing a guy in basketball, except they'll be Heismanizing it. They'll just be setting themselves up for the Heisman. And I just think Matt Leinart might end up just having a really big day, and all the Heisman voters sit there and they go, wow, that guy's pretty good, and maybe he'll pull some Heisman votes. Is
there any way that Notre Dame can compete with USC speed-wise? Isn't USC that much faster, or does Notre Dame have anything that you see, Bob, that could have some sort of a significant, not even significant, but a minor edge over USC?
That they're Notre Dame and that they have the luck of the Irish.
That's about it.
I just think that right now there is nobody in the country recruiting like Pete Carroll is. They're so loaded at every position. So if a guy goes down, they have 2-3 guys that can fill in, and they really don't miss a beat. It's not like that at Notre Dame. They have some good players. Brady Quinn, I think by the end of his career, a lot of people are going to say he was a fine quarterback, but he's not quite there yet. They're going to have to just have a great game plan where they can keep the ball away from USC. And, you know, the problem is you can't run the ball on USC's front four unless your name's J.J. Arrington, Pat. And, you know, if you can't run the ball against them and you're Notre Dame and you're forced to throw the ball 50 times, that probably means SC is going to get a lot of possessions, and that just doesn't work out in your favor.
Well, USC does have a definite chance of getting their Heisman Trophy hopefuls in Leinart and Reggie Bush. Of course, plenty of looks here in the next couple of weeks, considering they'll be on national television against Notre Dame and UCLA. Looking at the BCS picture, there are a lot of people at ESPN that seem to think Auburn should be the number one ranked team in the country. But looking at the fact that there's a very good possibility of 3 teams finishing the season unbeaten. We've talked about it before, but every year they try to tweak the BCS system. You mentioned, Bob, earlier, Boise State could get in a BCS bowl game, which would leave Cal out of the BCS picture. Considering all these particular scenarios, considering they tweak the system every year, and it still is not working, do you agree that, I mean, I know you said a couple weeks ago you think a playoff should be in order. Why isn't there any talk from the college football people at least to put a playoff in order? Because I think if you polled college football fans, I think 70 to 80% of them would like to see a playoff.
Money. It's all about the money.
But, Bob, don't you think that they would be making plenty of money? I mean, fans travel to see their teams anyway, and they'd be watching. I would think games on TV would be more interesting. Like, I'm not going to watch a Fiesta Bowl. I'm sorry. If it's Utah against Boston College, I'm probably not going to watch it. And there's going to be other people that aren't watching it because it doesn't have national championship implications. I think the people would be more likely to watch a Fiesta Bowl if they knew it was a quarterfinal or a semifinal for the national championship.
Maybe. But what everyone misinterprets on the money situation is, look, if you go to a playoff, then the NCAA takes control. Keep in mind that the NCAA has no control in the postseason and how that money's divided. That's why you have BCS conferences trying to block out non-BCS conferences, because they don't want to share the money that's involved in these big bowl games. So what you have is a situation where you have money tied in, and people don't want to lose their meal ticket, and they're scared that a national championship, a national playoff, will do just that. And so that's why I have a pretty simple proposal, and I think that this is the only way it's going to happen.
Bob, that's why there's Go ahead.
I just think that you take 4 teams at the end of the regular season, after the conference title games, you play your 2 semifinals a week or 10 days after those conference title games, and then you put the championship game in a bowl game, you rotate it like the BCS. And I know 4 teams, some people would like to see more, but I think you give the best of both worlds. You keep the regular season sanctity intact, where October and November are so big and so important, but you also get that playoff vibe at the end of the year with teams racing to be in the top 4. It's a little bit of a win-win for both sides.
Will that be enough then to conquer the conflicts of interest that you're talking about? Because that's what it sounds like to me, just pure conflicts of interest.
I don't know. I mean, you look at Utah and Boise State. I know Pat's sitting there, and he's fuming at the idea that Boise State could jump Cal. But what more can Boise State do? They've beaten everybody on their table, even if some of the games haven't been pretty. You know, what do they do to be included? I'm not saying they belong over Cal. Pat, hold on. I think Cal belongs. But I'm just saying, if you're Boise State, what do you do? And I think that, you know, maybe at least if you have a 4-team national playoff, in some years, Utah might sneak up in there as the 4th team. Maybe not this year, but maybe some years.
Well, I mean, and I just think in terms from a money standpoint, I think the college football found out when ABC backed out of doing all the BCS games this year and Fox actually took over that maybe financially adding this 5th BCS bowl is not really going to make them a whole lot of money as they had hoped, a whole lot of extra money, and maybe a playoff would make a little bit more sense because I think the revenue would increase further if they had a little bit of playoff, even the system you're talking about intact, as opposed to the current BCS picture right now. I think there'd be a lot more bidders for a playoff as opposed to this past year where it was mainly just Fox bidding against themselves for these BCS games.
I think what you also have to understand with this one is that it's not necessarily that they wouldn't make more money, it's that they control the money. The conference presidents, along with the bowl guys, control the money. They control the flow of the money. if they go to a playoff, the NCAA controls it. And I think that scares these conference presidents. And to a degree, you got to understand that. College football is an expensive endeavor. And right now, what they have as a system pays off for all the major conferences.
But these schools are still making plenty of money also from the NCAA basketball tournament, right? I mean, and that's the NCAA controlling the money there as well.
Yeah, and that's a good argument, and it's a good point. But again, I'm just telling you. I'm not saying I agree with you.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just telling you that this is the situation. The conference presidents don't want to give up control, and to a degree, you have to understand where they're coming from.
Well, that's Bob Holtzman. He joins us every Wednesday here on Preps and More. We'll speak with him again next week after this weekend's games, and obviously that's a subject for debate that will continue to be debated until they actually put any kind of a playoff in place here in college football. It's 1:36, back for the fourth inning, a moment on 10:10 KSIR.